Hello, my friend. Welcome to the study. It's good to see you here today. Today we're going to do some very relaxing Latin subordinate or dependent clauses. We're going to be looking at adverbial clauses. Clauses that answer the question, how? And listening to some nice paper and writing sounds. I have this notepad with the coated card. And there's some papers in it, so I'll find an empty page there. And we'll use, let's see, a pen, I think. Do you like the sound? The paper is so smooth. That it barely makes a sound when I write on it. So with our subordinate clauses, we can have noun clauses. Clause being a subject and verb phrase that can stand alone if it has to, as a mini sentence. And a clause can function as a noun in a statement. For example, dicit se venire. So that's our reported statement. He said that he was going. A command. In a command we have postulo ut veniat. I demand that he go. So in a subjunctive with ut. And noun in an exclamation. Perspexi quam dives esset. I found out or realized that he was rich, or how rich he was. So here we have nouns that he comes and he is. And we also have adjective clauses. Our adjective clauses are the same as relative clauses. So a relative will have the qui, qualis, and we'll also use ubi or unde, something that refers back. What we're going to look at today are some adverbial clauses. So the adverbial clause will refer to time, place, reason as well, how, where, when, a purpose clause as well, purpose. So all of our subjunctive purpose clauses, result clauses, conditions, and concessional clauses, and comparison clauses, and as well manner, the manner in which something is done. So these adverbial clauses, as you can see, are going to have lots of different uses in Latin, just like they do in English. Shall we do a few? We're going to look at clauses of purpose. We usually express purpose in English with to, as in order to, or so that. And we know that in Latin these are used with the subjunctive. This can also be called a final clause. Right. Let's look at some examples. Pugnate, imperative of fight. Ut, liberi, sitis. And there's that word, liberi, that looks very similar to liber, book, or liber, child. Liberi, children, and this is an adjective form of libertus, free, fight, ut, so that, and there's our subjunctive, sis, sitis, you may be free, liberi. Londinium, iwi ut reginam viderem. Londinium, iwi, I went to London, ut, in order to viderem, see the Queen. Milites, knauerunt. Ne vincerentur. The soldiers fought bravely. And there's our ne. That is our purpose clause for negative, so that not. Ut in Latin is never used with the negative. With the negative we use a ne. The soldiers fought bravely so that they would not be conquered or beaten. And if subjunctive, we can say in English, so as not to be beaten, and use our passive participle, where we use the subjunctive in Latin. Let's review how to construct the subjunctive in Latin. We'll do it in pencil. For clauses of purpose, we will use the present tense subjunctive for primary sequence. And in historic sequence, we use the imperfect. So we only need to work with the present and imperfect subjunctives with our clauses of purpose. And we should add to our little conjunctions here, ne, for so as not to. So we remember that ut for purpose and ne for negative. Now constructing the subjunctive in the present tense. Let's see. We'll use a combination of pen and pencil. Subjunctive. Present tense. And we have 5 different conjugations. 1. Our vowel is a, such as amare. 2. Our vowel is an a. 3rd conjugation, e. And then we have the 3/4 conjugation, which is also a. And 4th conjugation, e. And these sounds will change. The R changes to e. A changes to the diphthong ea. E to a. And 3/4, a to ia. And 4, of course, to ia. So it helps that 3/4 fluctuates between the third and fourth conjugation. So that's our vowel change. And then we have our active endings. First, let's do our imperfect stem, which is much easier because in the subjunctive, your imperfect stem is simply the infinitive. So, for example, if we have amare, we have ame. So it's amem, ames, amet, instead of ama. And our infinitive is amare. And then we just put the endings on, which will be m, s, t, and mus, tis, and nt. So our imperfect subjunctive for amare, amarem, amares, amaret, amamemus, amametis. Sorry, it's amaremus, amaretis, and amarent. That's our imperfect. And for present tense, amem, ames, amet, amemus, ametis, ament. And second conjugation, monere, we changed to monea, moneam, moneas, moneat. And the infinitive, monere, monerem, moneres, moneret. So you're starting to see a pattern there. Third conjugation, legere. And that will change to lega, legam, legas, legat, legamus, legatis, legant. An infinitive, legere, legerem, legeres, legeret. So there's our present and imperfect for third conjugation. And for our threefold or mixed conjugation, we can use capio, capere, and that becomes capiam, capies, capiat, capiamus, capiatis, capiant. And the infinitive, capere, caperem, caperes, caperet. Very easy. Fourth conjugation, audio. Very tricky one if you're not paying attention. Audia, audiam, audias, audiat, audiamus, audiatis, audiant. And the infinitive for the imperfect subjunctive, audire, audirem, audires, audiret, audiremus, audiretis, audirent. So we formed our subjunctive for our clauses of purpose. Let's try some clauses of purpose. Remember, we must use the subjunctive with ut or ne, because we cannot use an infinitive in Latin to express purpose as we do in English. We'll do there's a dative, eudicibus. Praemia, dated, and this clause can stand alone. He gave to the jurors bribes. And now we find a purpose, ut. Se. Absolverent. there's our subjunctive and the ut. Ut in order to. And here we have se, which is an object, and we know that se always refers to the subject of the previous clause, which is he, and not the eudicibus. If it were the eudicibus, it would be eos. So here we have, he gave the jurors bribes in order that they would acquit him. There's our adverbial clause of purpose. And if the term adverbial or adverb bothers you, you can just call them purpose clauses, which most people do. I think it's gone a bit out of fashion to call them adverb clauses, and probably a bit convoluted as well. Let's try another one. Magister. Pueros. Extra orbem. Ducere solitus. Erat. The master or the teacher. Solitus erat was accustomed to. Ducere to lead. Pueros the boys. Extra orbem out of the city. This is a clause that is a statement, but now we need to lend purpose to it. Why? He was accustomed to leading the boys out of the city, ut, in order to. There's our subjunctive, corpus exercerent, to exercise the body, or that so they might exercise the body. Let's check in on our pal Caesar. Kaiser. Ex provincia. Let's go egressus erat. A bit of a mess there. So Caesar had left the province. And here we have uti. Sometimes we see in Julius Caesar, of course, he's talking about himself. And we have got uti se, referring back to Caesar, who had gone, egressus erat. Contum melis. My writing is getting a little bit sloppy. Contum melis. Inimicorum defenderet. there's our subjunctive. Uti, just another ut there in order to defend himself from the insults of the enemies, or we can assume his enemies are insulting him. So, after the insults, he left the provinces. But we see we've got a pluperfect there, so we're waiting for something else to happen. Let's do a more involved one. Haec ad te scripsi. Pluribus ut videris. And I'll separate the clauses. Te quoque debere illam monere. This paper is so smooth. It's a real pleasure to write on. I don't know if you can hear the birds outside the window, but they're very loud. They've joined us in our Latin practice. So here we have haec ad te scripsi pluribus. So scripsi, I have written, haec, this or these things, ad te, to you, pluribus. We could say many ways, in many ways, in several ways, pluribus. So I didn't just write it in one way. Haec scripsi pluribus, in many ways, ut videris, so that you might see videris. And there's our subjunctive, ut plus the subjunctive, and videris, that is our imperfect subjunctive, videris, so that you goes with the scripsi, but in the English we just translate that as if it were present, even though we understand it happened in the past. Te quoque dubera illam monere, so that you might see. And here we have a quoque, you also, and there's our verb debere and monere, because we have something of indirect speech. So in English we use our that conjunction to talk about what you are seeing. In Latin we don't always need that, because we just use the infinitive. Remember, our infinitive is not expressing purpose. The purpose here is the subjunctive, videris, in order that you might see that you also debere, should or ought to, monere, advise, illam, our feminine, that one, that woman, her. So that's our rather involved one. Loads of grammatical fun. I hope you've enjoyed the paper and the pen sounds today. It's nice and relaxing as we go through our clauses today. remember to be good to yourself. Be kind to others. And be extraordinary.